G'day, guys. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the AMA podcast brought to you by Fantasy Basketball International. I'm Adam King. Jump over, find me on Twitter at AdamKing91. Check out all of our content, www.fbibasketball.com. So just firing out a quick mailbag AMA show. Managed to get about 30 minutes before I need to head back out with the kids. So a few questions came in on Discord. I pulled one from something I put in there yesterday as well. So I'll go through those ones quickly. And then, we're probably not going to get a ton of people watching this live because it was pretty short notice. So, if you are watching those, throw your question in there and I will do my best to get to that. So some of these are pretty quick. Do we have to wait for Indiana, LA, Utah trades, or can we finish our rankings list? I think we need to move forward at this point. We know Westbrook might be getting traded. We know Utah could be moving off of Bogdanovich, Clarkson, Conley, those guys. Look, it really depends where you are in terms of your drafts. If your drafts are coming up, then I guess you just need to move forward with what we've got at the moment for rankings and hope for the best. Especially we've got our draft-only leagues. We've got a few more about to launch, I think, but then they're done and we'll be moving into redraft leagues. And I've actually got a couple of redraft leagues drafting in the next week. So we are about a month out now from games. Preseason starts in 10 days or something like that, I think, or training camp, or I don't know, something that we're getting close. So, I think if you're close enough with your draft, just go ahead with what we've got at the moment in terms of rankings. Looking at the signing that happened this morning, Dennis Schroeder signed with the Lakers again. Does he have any value in 12-team leagues? Short answer is no, at least not at this point. I guess this links in a little bit to that previous question with the Lakers trades. If Westbrook does get moved, then maybe Schroeder comes into consideration as a backup or a really deep league guy. But I think at the moment it's Pat Beverly and Westbrook are the two that are going to get the bulk of the minutes. And we've seen Schroeder in 26, 28-minute roles previously, and he hasn't been a top 150 player. So it does come down a little bit to stats and what you're looking for. He'll score, he'll get some assists, but outside of that, doesn't do much. So, for me, I'm not sort of making too many adjustments on that one. How do draft-only leagues change your draft strategy and then all flex positions? So this one is relevant because we're about to launch a few draft-only leagues. So this was just an idea that I came up with B-Dub about mixing it up a bit and running some draft-only leagues where we have every position on the roster is a flex position. So in terms of how this changes my draft strategy, in head-to-head, I think you have to punt, or it's you're a better chance, I think, of being successful if you do punt, because normally, obviously, some people punt, some don't. Now you could draft 14 point guards if you wanted to. So punting will be easier because you don't need to chase out of position stats. If you're looking at guard stats, you just draft guards. If you're looking at big stats, you just draft bigs. So I think if you're in a head-to-head league, you probably need to punt. I know I'll be punting pretty hard. If it's a roto format with all flex positions, I'm still not against punting in roto, but generally you would only punt one category, maybe two. But you do need a little bit more of a balanced attack. So it doesn't change my strategy too much. Although getting out of position stats could actually be pretty key in a roto format, because you'll get guys reaching and taking centers earlier and that sort of thing. So if you can get guards that get rebounds or big men that get assists, I think that will help even more. Now this one was in the general Discord channel, I think, where I was just looking for suggestions for what I could do on podcasts over the next few weeks. And this one was interesting. So looking at punting versus balanced team approach and then considering sort of your standard leagues, 12 team, and deeper formats, so 20 or even 30 team. That part of the question, I think the deeper your league, the more you have to punt, and the deeper the league, punting actually gets easier, and I think more beneficial in terms of, so your deeper league guys, so players that are sort of outside the top 130, 150, a lot of them will be good at maybe one category, and they'll have a few flaws. So someone like Jose Alvarado for the Pels, really good at steals, decent at assists, doesn't really help you anywhere else, and will actually drag you down by having him as an active roster member. But I think if you're in a 30-team league and you're punting, he's maybe going to be a top 160 player or top 180 player. If you're punting, say, rebounds and blocks, and if you're like me and you're punting even more categories like field goal percentage, he could actually move in to be sort of a top 80 player in a build like that. So I think you can actually extract a lot more value from those deep league players when you're in 20-team leagues or even 16 team leagues, because in theory then if you've got a 16-team league with 12 roster spots, you're looking at about 190 players. So some of those guys in the back end will actually could make a difference in terms of the outcome of your season. So deeper leagues, I would definitely be punting. 12-team leagues, it's sort of up to you. Having a look at when the ideal point to decide on a punt, I tend not to go into a draft with a preconceived idea of what I'm going to punt, although I might have a path to sort of which way I'm going to go. That could change though based on my second round pick. So say in the first round, I've been getting Luka Doncic a lot. If I'm getting him, I'm probably looking at punting steals potentially, because he's a guard that doesn't get steals. Blocks, he doesn't really get blocks. But you wouldn't want to be punting rebounds, for instance, because he's a very good rebounder from the guard position. So he's actually the opposite. You would want to be targeting rebounds if you get a player like Doncic. Whereas if you were to get, say, who else have we got in that top bit? I don't know, Steph Curry, you're probably looking at punting your big man stats. But if the second round comes, sort of your position comes around in the second round, and there might be a player there that you weren't expecting, don't just overlook that player because you're sort of locked into this early punt. So I really don't sort of decide fully until probably after the third round which way I'm going to go with a punt. And as I've said, I'm okay punting. If you're in a 9-category league, I punt 4 categories often. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's pretty tricky to do. And it often means that you aren't going to finish top of your standings because you're only winning 5-4, maybe 6-3. So you'll finish sort of midfield. And it does mean you need to be really good at those 5 categories. It doesn't give you a lot of room for error. I just like challenging myself and doing that a bit. So now on to some questions that have actually come in, which is good. Doing my first draft only league, 12-team head-to-head 9-cat, all flex. Yeah, I'm in one of those. How does your strategy change? Yeah, like I said, I did sort of touch on this in these all flex leagues. I would recommend punting only because you don't have to take into consideration if you're going sort of a guard-heavy punt where you're looking at assists and steals and threes, points, free throw percentage. There's sort of your 5 categories that are typically associated with guards. If you're going down that path, you don't have to sort of have in the back of your mind, well, I need to draft a center at some point, or I need to get forwards, because you simply don't need to. As I said, if you want to draft 12 guards, 14 guards, however deep the roster is, you can do that And it means it's going to be interesting. And the reason I wanted to do this format was because I actually think that ADPs won't mean as much, because if people are sort of employing different punt strategies, you're going to have guys that are maybe the 80th or 90th ranked player in terms of ADP. But if it's someone like Brandon Clark, I think he's going around 90 from memory. But if you're punting assists, threes, and points, Brandon Clark probably comes up to be a top 50 player. So I think you're going to find players going off the board quite early in relation to their ADP. So it is going to be interesting. But all I would really be changing is that I would almost have to punt, I think. Uh, who's the player you're highest on that you think will smash his ADP this year by 20 to 30 spots? So I did a video yesterday on sleepers and value picks. Trying to think back who I had on there now. Devin Vassell. I mean, I've made it pretty clear that I'm high on him. He's going around 90, I think, from memory. Let me just bring up the list of names that I had yesterday. Where are we? No, this one. So Devin Vassell, I know, was on that list. Here we go. So yeah, Vassell's going at 84. I said I think he could be a top 50 player. Obviously, the deeper you get into drafts is when you're going to find those guys that can beat their ADP by 2 to 3 rounds. It's unlikely or not as likely in the early rounds. Mikal Bridges is another one. I think he was going at 78. It should be a top 60, top 50 player based on what we've seen. Nothing much changes for him. PJ Washington, another guy that I like. He was a bit of a letdown last season, but I like him this season. He's going at 93 at the moment, and I think if he starts and plays 32, 33 minutes a game, he could be a top 70, top 65 player. A couple of the higher guys, if we look at John Collins is going at 75, I don't mind him there. Another one similar to Mikal Bridges, who should be sort of top 60, top 50. Michael Porter Jr. is an obvious one, but the injury concern is obviously there with him, unlike a few of these other players. He's going at 79, and last season he was being drafted in the second round. So he has upside to put up a top 30 season. But there is that element of risk given the back injury and the fact that it wasn't the first time. Who are some ideal end of second round guys to take this year? Yeah, look, it's tricky at the end of the second round. The whole second round actually is not, it's not really clear in terms of who we need to be taking. And it depends who falls. So, I mean, if you're looking at the second round, if you can get someone like a Paul George late, I'm just going to bring up ADPs here so I can give you an idea just in relation to Fantrax ADPs, because that's where we run all of our leagues. So Paul George his ADP on Fantrax is 28. So but he should be going earlier than that. He should be going top 20. DeJounte Murray is sort of a guy that I was off, and then I'm back on a little bit, and I don't mind him getting him at the back end of the second round. Those guys like Kyrie Irving, Kawhi Leonard, they're probably going to go a bit earlier than that. But if they are slept on in your league, I'd be targeting them if you've picked up someone fairly solid in the first round, like Giannis or Jokic or Tatum, something like that. I'm not on Garland. I wouldn't be targeting him. Lillard, probably not going to fall that far, but he's another one. If for some reason he does fall, be targeting him. It really, I mean, it comes down to your strategy as well. If you're punting, if it's roto, if it's head to head, if it's points, I would generally, as I said, I'd be punting. So in the draft that I'm in now, which is one of those all flex drafts, and I need to make my pick because I know I'm on the clock. I'm pick 1, so I'll be taking Jokic, and this is the first time I've actually been able to take him ever. So pretty excited to get him on my team. And it's a roto format. So what I'm going to be looking at with my second round pick at the back end of the second round there is going to be probably either getting some blocks because Jokic isn't particularly good in blocks. And potentially threes. They're probably the two categories I'd need to just shore up a little bit. And so if I was going for blocks, I'd be okay taking Gobert there if he's falling a bit. Does hurt you in points, but basically locks up blocks for you. And then if I'm looking for threes, I mean, you can choose from any number of players there. Donovan Mitchell might be available, probably a little bit early. Paul George, as I said, would be a guy I'd be targeting there if he's available. Where are we? Next question. Through some seriously aggressive trading last year, I've ended up with 5 picks for round 4. Right. Okay, so round 4. Again, looking at based on ADP, some of the numbers here. Look, a few guys here actually, if you're I mean, I'm not sure whether you've got picks in the first 3 rounds or whether I've been in drafts where you have nothing up to round 4 and then you get multiple picks. If you haven't got any picks prior to round 4, then you're probably you're going to have to punt. If it was a head-to-head league, wasn't it? Oh, it doesn't say. So if it's a head-to-head league, you're going to have to punt probably because you've missed out on those top guys. So you're actually in a really nice position to be able to punt. I was in a league similar to this last year and ended up winning the league, or I at least made the final. And it was something similar to this. So I think I had 2 round 3 picks and 3 round 4 picks or something, and nothing in round 1 or 2. Yeah, I feel like you have to punt. So you could grab guys like I don't know. You could go Chris Middleton, De'Aaron Fox, Terry Rozier. Cade's going to go before that. Drew Holiday. You're probably going to have to punt points because beyond sort of your second, third round players, it's pretty hard to get points. So you'd be punting that and then seeing who's available. But I would group like players together and actually go a pretty hard punt. So 12 team head-to-head 10 category. Well, I wonder what the 10th category is. Yeah, so I would be punting hard if you haven't got any picks. Is it okay to ask trade-specific questions? Yeah, look, if you've got a trade-specific question, far away. 9-cat Roto. Wow, big trade. Giannis, Jamal Murray, Trent Jr., or Halliburton, Chris Paul, Miles Turner. If this is just a redraft league, so not dynasty, not a keeper league, anything like that. Giannis is obviously the best player there, but he actually doesn't fit too well, although it's Roto. He's not a great fit with Jamal Murray and Gary Trent because they're both solid free throw shooters. If you look at the pairing or the grouping of Halliburton, Chris Paul, and Miles Turner, yeah, I mean Turner's going to get you those blocks. He will hit some threes. So none of those 3 are huge perimeter scorers, but will all get you some 3-pointers. Your assists are locked in there. Your steals are locked in there. Blocks are locked in. Rebounds, not super great. Points, not super great either. So, yeah, if it's a trade, I mean, you'd have to have a look at the rest of your roster. Generally, you want to go best player, so that would be Giannis. But in saying that, Halliburton, Chris Paul, and Miles Turner, in theory, could all be top 30 players, whereas I think Giannis is the only top 30 player in that second bunch. Trent could be more like top 80. And Jamal Murray could be top 40 by the end of the season. but could take a little while to ramp up. So I actually don't mind the Halliburton, Chris Paul, Miles Turner trio there. Notice that Kawhi has been falling in mock drafts in some instance to the end of the third, early fourth. Any reason? Look, I think it's just the injury thing. People are hesitant to draft him, but I'm not as... Look, if you can get him in early third, end of the third, early fourth, I'd be jumping on that absolutely. I mean, I think per game he'll be a first-round player. He's probably only going to play 60 games, but I think even in 60 games, he's probably a top 20 guy. So if you can get him in the third, sort of late in the third or early in the fourth, that's around 35 to 40. It's a no-brainer there. And you have to remember that his injury it wasn't last season, it was the season before. So he's actually had 15, 16 months to recover from what was a partially torn ACL, which still requires ACL surgery and the same as a full tear. But given he's had so long to recover, I'm not too concerned. For the draft-only leagues, are you avoiding injury? Look, I'm not avoiding them, but I'm avoiding multiple guys. So I wouldn't, so I wouldn't be drafting, say, KD, Kawhi, and Kyrie, because with draft-only leagues, you can't touch your roster. So it's a little risky. So I'm okay with drafting one of those guys. But just with the fact that those top players like Giannis, Jokic, Doncic, they're so far ahead. So the difference between, say, a top 6 player or top 5 player to someone in the third round is huge, whereas the difference from third round to 6th round is not a lot, and subsequently from like your 6th round to your 12th round is not huge. So I wouldn't take too many risks with your top players. You're okay to get one, but yeah, I'm not avoiding them. I'm just not bunching them together. And we might go, we'll go another one before I run off to do dad stuff. I have Kawhi and Jared Allen as my keepers. Oh, this is in relation to that earlier question. Okay, so I have Kawhi and Jared Allen as my keepers. First 2 rounds are locked for keepers, and then I have 2 picks in round 3, 5 in round 4. Yeah, wow, that's okay. So Kawhi, Jared Allen, interesting pairing there. I'd probably, just off the top of my head, I think it was head to head. It was head to head. I'd probably be punting assists. That would be assists. Kawhi, he's not going to be as good as he was in steals, say 3-4 years ago. He's still solid. But assists would definitely be a route I'd be going there. And then if you've got 2 picks in round 3, 5 in round 4, if you only want to punt one category, it depends how comfortable you are punting. But if you only want to punt assists, then you probably need to get a blocks guy. So maybe you can get Gobert, although he might be a keeper or not available in round 3. But even a Miles Turner wouldn't be a bad target there to shore up those blocks. I mean, Allen is a decent shot blocker, but he's not elite like Gobert. And points is probably, as I said, something that you might need to punt as well. Jared Allen is not a big scorer. Kawhi, he will score, but he's not going to be a 30-point scorer or anything like that. So points and assists might be something you want to look at there, and just base your targets around that. How much do you avoid drafting players with less games played during the final weeks? League ends March 26th. Clippers only play 8 games. Yeah, look, it's something to consider. I don't look too hard at the schedule because, you've got to get to that end of the season by winning and that sort of thing. So, if you were to say you were to avoid drafting PG and Kawhi, but come the end of the season, you're not competing, or you've had some bad weeks because you avoided them, and then you're not even in the running, then what was the point? So I would rather sort of act and then think later, which goes against, I guess, some people's philosophy. But I honestly, I haven't even looked at the schedule this season. I'm more about just getting a good team together, and then hoping that you've done enough that come that last few weeks of the season, um, you're okay. You're in a position where even if you did have, say, Paul George and he's only playing 8 games, you're high enough in the standings that it doesn't make a massive difference. And look, come that end of the season, teams are resting players, that sort of thing. So yes, they only play 8 games, and you might draft someone instead of Paul George who plays 10 games, but they may have a couple of back-to-backs in there, and they end up resting or something like that. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on that. And what's your view on you in drafting someone who's undervalued at ADP versus someone who's at value but fits your build? Who would you prefer? Look, depends on depends on format and that sort of thing. Obviously, I tend to go for who fits my build, especially as you get deeper and deeper into drafts. So from about round 4, 5 onwards, um, I would target those players that fit my build, especially if you're punting. Um, and if you are punting, then those players that you're going to draft would generally be value anyway, because you'll be targeting someone whose ADP might be, maybe it's pick 70, but in your build they're a top 50 player. So you're often going to be getting value there anyway. Um, so yeah, I tend to go for who fits my build, which then also means you can get players that other managers might not have their eye on at that point, even if it does feel like you're reaching a little bit. So like with I don't know, someone who's let's have a look at the ADPs here. So if you're looking at getting, say you're looking at punting blocks and field goal percentage, and that's probably not a good idea. Yeah, I can't come up with one off the top of my head, but you might end up sort of appearing to reach for a player when actually in your build they fit. So for me, it's about build. Unless you know that there's a player, if you know the managers in your league quite well, and trading is something that's done often, and it's something that you're willing to do, then you can also always grab someone. You might know that there's another manager that's really targeting this player who has someone on their team that you want. So keeping an eye on other rosters as you're drafting is important, because you might be able to pick up this guy, even though he doesn't fit your build, and then give him a week and he might be really good, and then you can trade him away for 2 players, or someone that that other manager has that you really want. Favorite last round 9 category sleeper player. So last round. So we're looking at sort of, if it's a standard league, around 150. Look, there's a few guys there that I don't mind, and it does depend if you're looking at pure upside, or just locking in a few categories, because you have got guys like Will Barton, Norm Powell. Who else is going in that range? Not Batum. Thomas Bryant, Derek White, Dylan Brooks. Those guys are all sort of going towards the back end. I wouldn't be. There's no upside with those guys. So if you're not looking for upside, if you're just looking to shore up a couple of categories, they might be worthwhile targets. If you're looking at last round guys that is it not working? If you're looking at last round guys, Isaiah Livers, I like him. Tari Eason is a guy that I've picked up in a couple of leagues. Not sure exactly what he's going to look like to open the season, but we've seen the Rockets before, last season before, that they're more than okay, giving these guys the keys later in the season. My computer's frozen. I don't know whether the recording has frozen. Let me just see if I can get back onto the tab. No, it's not liking this at all. Oh, there we go. Okay, we're back. Yeah, look, hopefully that didn't mess things up too much. Yeah, so Livers, Tari Eason is another one that I like. You're sort of looking at guys that could step into a larger role later in the season, because initially out of the gates, we pretty much know what minutes are going to look like. James Wiseman is another player that could certainly step into a larger role at some point. So you want to sort of focus on players on those teams uh, where yeah. So last 2 months, they're probably going to sort of change up their rotations, maybe ship out some of their veterans. They're the guys that I'd be targeting. Locked On Fantasy Basketball. That could be Josh having a look. Why am I so tall? Uh, why am I so tall? My family, I guess. I'm the shortest in my family. So I'm about 6'6". My brother's about 6'8", I think, and my dad's about 6'8" as well. I've got a cousin that's 7'2". My mum's 6'1". So that's why I'm tall. Although interestingly enough, my dad's dad, so my pop, was 5 foot, I don't know, 6 or something, not tall at all. So my dad is sort of the outlier in his family, and then gave it all to us. Have I chatted about Schroeder? Yes, I did. Draftable? No, I'm not drafting Schroeder. If Westbrook goes, maybe you could consider him with a last pick, but I don't see much upside there. He has been really good at Eurobasket, but we've seen him in a 28-minute role where he hasn't been draftable or 12-team worthy. So can I dunk? I could before I tore my ACL in February. So prior to that, yes, I could. Whether I will be able to again, still undecided. I'm about what are we? I'm about 5 months since I had my ACL surgery, and I'm back running. Not very well, but I'm running, walking, doing most things. So, correct answer. Thank you, Josh. If it is, I'm assuming it's Josh. Um, memorable experience. Oh, look, winning a league is always nice, especially when it's with friends. Rubbing it in and basking, and if you're in a league that has a trophy or some sort of a prize, that's always nice as well. I did have the first season, I think I played, first or second season, I remember it was a double-double league. So we had double-doubles as a category. And I didn't know too much about fantasy when this was 10, 11 years ago or something. And I remember I traded Brandon Jennings and I got David Lee in a trade. And I don't know why that trade sticks in my head, but I do remember that year in our league, David Lee ended up being a first-round player, I think, because of double-doubles. And that's when he was probably with the Warriors. So I do remember that trade. And that I ended up winning, I think, or coming second. And then something else I remember was in a league again early on. It was a keeper league, and I think my keeper. So the way the league works is we get one keeper 1 year, and then the next year you have two, next year you have three, then it resets. And my keeper was Anthony Davis, and this was back when he was playing with the Pearls, and he was a bit of an injury risk, but it was around that time when he was reasonably healthy. And I had him as my keeper, and then I managed to draft Karl Anthony Towns in the next season. It was his rookie season, I'm pretty sure. And he ended up, again, in our league, which was a double-double league. He ended up being, I think, a first-round player potentially. So I was able to build around those two guys and ended up winning the league pretty comfortably that year, which was good. So Look, that's going to do it for today. It is Josh. Very nice. Nice to know Josh is watching. I've got to head off now, take my son to the zoo, take my daughter to the movies, do all the dad stuff. We'll probably be firing out more of these as the season ramps up. We'll be doing maybe 1 or 2 a week. Remember, you can go up, check out all of our content, including access to the Discord server, which is growing. I think we're at 1.75 thousand people in there. So, and as I said, our draft only leagues are about to wrap up. I think we're about to launch a few more, which actually relate to Josh a little bit, in that they will be 7 category leagues. So we'll be doing no percentage, or getting rid of field goal percentage, free throw percentage, and turnovers, and replacing those with true shooting percentage. Just again, as a bit of an experiment. So we'll be launching those, I think, in the next few days. B-Dub does that, so I'll leave all that to him. And then the redraft leagues will be kicking off. Hoping to do one of these with Matt Lawson at some point in the next few weeks. I know he's really busy, and aligning our time zones is a bit tricky. But yeah, jump over into Discord and our website, fbibasketball.com. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe. We are building slowly, which is nice. Until next time, catch up.